But first, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan and Congressman Matt Gaetz, they will be here in a moment with more on today's very explosive hearing on Capitol Hill with the FBI Director Chris Wray, who should be fired. And under both Wray and his predecessor, Jim Comey, Mr. Higher Honor, the world's once premier law enforcement agency has now sadly been transformed into nothing short of an arm of the Democratic Party. They have become politicized and they've become weaponized. The Bureau is now rotting from the top down with extreme political bias, and based on Wray's non-answers, cavalier attitude today, well, he seems that he doesn't really care at all. Now, it's now well established that the FBI put cinder blocks on the scales of the last two presidential elections in our country. In 2016, after detailing a litany of serious crimes, top secret, classified information all over a server, there was no raid of Hillary Clinton's Chappaqua home. No, not at all. James Comey said no reasonable prosecutor would ever prosecute Hillary Clinton. Remember the 33,000 subpoenaed, deleted emails and destroyed devices? No consequences there either. And at the very same time, the FBI was perpetuating what was the worst Russia collusion conspiracy theories, all against Donald Trump, all without a shred of evidence, and using that false information, Hillary's bought and paid for dirty Russian dossier, all to defraud a FISA court. And they knew it was a lie from the beginning. And they even offered the author, Christopher Steele, $1 million, and he couldn't collect, but they still used that information before that FISA court in that application. Now, 4 years later, in 2020, fast forward, under Christopher Wray, now the FBI director, the FBI continued to float the Russia hoax, all while pre-bunking what the FBI knew was a very true Hunter Biden laptop scandal to every big tech company in the country. They did it weekly. They met with big tech companies in the lead up to that election. They knew the laptop was real. They first had it in December of 2019. Then they purposely misled social media companies, telling them they may be victims of a misinformation campaign to shape the outcome of a presidential election. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Take a look.
8 days ago, on July 4th, in the Western District of Louisiana, the court found that the federal government suppressed Americans' First Amendment free speech rights. Opposition to President Biden's policies, statements that the Hunter Biden laptop was true, and opposition to policies of the government officials in power. All were suppressed. It is quite telling that each example or category of suppressed speech was conservative in nature. The court further writes, the United States government seems to have assumed a role similar to an Orwellian ministry of truth. Specific to the FBI, the court said this: the FBI's failure to alert social media companies that the Biden laptop story was real and not Russian disinformation is particularly troubling. Your FBI wrote a memo talking about radical traditional Catholics. I'm just wondering if you could define it for us.
Well, what I can tell you is you're referring to the Richmond product, which was a single product by a single field office, which as soon as I found out about it, I was aghast.
Do you think priests should be informants inside the church, Director?
We do not recruit, open, or operate confidential human sources to infiltrate, target, report.
But that's not what this said. It sounds like you were trying to do it in Richmond, Virginia.
No, sir. No, sir.
You weren't? This didn't happen? You can assure us that this didn't happen?
That product did not, to as best as we can tell, result in any investigative action as a result of it. None.
Now, the abuse of power does not stop there. Just listen to how the FBI and at least one major bank worked together to monitor the accounts of certain law-abiding Americans, especially those who have purchased firearms. By the way, all without a warrant. Take a look.
Did the FBI ask financial institutions to turn over their customers' debit and credit card purchase history in the Washington, D.C. area for January 5th and 6th, 2021?
I don't know the answer to that as I sit here right now. I am aware that Bank of America provided information to the FBI, but what communications occurred between the FBI and Bank of America about it?
Let's read it. To recap our morning call, we are prepared to action the following threshold. Customers transacting debit card, credit card, Washington, D.C. purchases between 1/5/21, 1/6/21. That's scary enough. But then the next bullet point's even more scary. Any any historical, capital letters, all capitals, any historical purchase of a firearm. You guys asked financial institutions, at least Bank of America, we think more. Did you guys ask him?
Again, I don't have the full sequence of the back and forth.
So the FBI can find a complicated workaround to monitor bank accounts from thousands of Americans without a warrant. But they couldn't be bothered to preemptively protect the Capitol before January 6th from threats that were detailed. In other words, actionable intelligence. Even NBC News and Lester Holt reported on this actionable intelligence and the failure of law enforcement to act on all of this that they had way before January 6th. And while the FBI labels concerned parents at school board meetings domestic terrorists and defames conservative Catholics and persecutes pro-life Americans, well, the raid on Mar-a-Lago, that was no problem in an unprecedented search that they don't call a raid. Then what was it? The Bureau seems totally uninterested in any serious allegations against the Biden family, against Hunter Biden in particular, and especially Joe Biden's potential involvement. And we know he lied to this country when he said he never talked to his son about his foreign business dealings. He was active, meeting many of his foreign business partners. Anyway, here's Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida.
I'm sitting here with my father. I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father. Sounds like a shakedown, doesn't it, Director?
I'm not going to get into commenting on that.
You seem deeply uncurious about it, don't you? Almost suspiciously uncurious. Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not. The FBI does not and has no interest in
You won't answer the
protecting
question
anyone
about whether or not
politically.
that's a shakedown, and everybody knows why you won't answer it. Because to the millions of people who will see this, they know it is. And your inability to acknowledge that is deeply revealing about you. You don't give straight answers. You give answers that later a court deems aren't true. And then at the end of the day, you won't criticize an obvious shakedown when it's directly in front of us. And it appears as though you're whitewashing the conduct of corrupt people.
Respectfully, Congressman, in your home state of Florida, the number of people applying to come work for us and devote their lives working for us is up over 100%.
We're deeply proud of them, and they deserve better than you.
Wow. Checkmate. Now, as far as we know, there have been no serious investigations into potential crimes documented on Zero Experience Hunter's laptop, no extensive probe into the bribery allegations in that 1023 form made by a trusted and paid FBI source, no investigation into Joe Biden at all whatsoever. Anything that could implicate the big guy in a serious crime has been suppressed or it has been ignored. Now, naturally, we heard almost no complaints from the Democrats on the Hill today on the FBI's abuse of power. Always seems to cut one way, in favor of Democrats against conservatives. And by the way, the Bureau's unconstitutional government overreach is ongoing and must end. According to a brand new report from the House Weaponization Subcommittee, the FBI recently worked with Ukraine's compromised intelligence agency in an attempt to censor social media accounts that dare to say the wrong thing about the war in Ukraine. And yet Chris Wray can't be bothered to address these concerns in any way at all whatsoever. He didn't give a single straight answer all day. He ducked, he dodged, he weaved and obfuscated and took responsibility for absolutely nothing. It's all one big political game to Director Wray. Take a look.
Again, I'm not going to get into that here.
Did you request the information?
I can't speak to the specifics. Again, I don't have the numbers as I sit here right now. There have been instances in which individuals have had disciplinary action and who are no longer with it. I can't get into it here. I just can't speak to that here.
Do you know what the motivation was?
Well, again, I think that's what our internal review will find, and I'd rather wait. I don't know if that number is accurate. I can't get into discussions that did or maybe more importantly did not happen between the FBI and the department.
How about we replace the word I can't with I won't, because that's a more truthful answer. According to a recent poll, Americans' trust in the FBI has now reached rock bottom levels, down more than 20 points in 5 short years. But Chris Wray doesn't seem to care at all, is doing nothing to right this ship. No one has been held accountable for perpetuating the Russia hoax. No one held accountable for the litany of abuses detailed in the Durham report. No one in the FBI held accountable for the security failures on January 6th with actionable intelligence. No one held accountable for defrauding the FISA court. In fact, FISA abuse is still apparently taking place on a massive scale. Take a look.
How many illegal FISA queries have occurred under your leadership of the FBI?
Well, there are reports that have come out with different numbers about compliance incidents.
More than 1 million illegal ones? Because that's what the Inspector General said. The Inspector General said that in the 3.4 million of these queries, more than 1 million were in error. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment by the Inspector General?
I'm not sure actually that's a correct characterization of the Inspector General's findings on that.
Well, the internet will remind you of that in moments. But let's now go to what the court said. The court said it was over 200,000 that have occurred on your watch. Do you have any basis to disagree with that assessment?
Again, I don't have the numbers I sit here right now. What I can
Seems
tell
like
you,
a number you should know. How many times the FBI is breaking the law under your watch?
Ouch. The FBI has been politicized. Chris Wray has no business leading the Bureau.